Have you ever felt like you've given everything in a relationship, only to receive nothing in return, and slowly, you begin to lose yourself? Does that sound familiar? But what if I told you that the only way to break free from manipulation isn't by running away, but by rediscovering your true power? In this video, inspired by Denzel Washington's motivation, we'll take you on a shocking and powerful journey. When a super empath slowly begins to realize the manipulation of a narcissist, but instead of fighting back, they undergo a complete transformation without lifting a finger. You won't believe how this happens. Stay with us until the end to uncover this life-changing secret and discover how you can apply it today to completely transform your own life. The attraction between the empath and the narcissist often begins with subtle, almost imperceptible factors. The empath possesses a deep need, not to be loved, but to understand and connect with other souls. They don't seek perfection or idealism, but a true connection. They long to offer comfort for the invisible wounds of others, helping them find peace in a world full of turbulence. It is this longing that creates an open door, a vast space for the narcissist to step into. The narcissist sees in the empath something they crave, a sense of control. They are not searching for real love, nor do they yearn for the profound empathy that the empath can provide. Instead, they long for something far more powerful: control. The power to dominate, manipulate, and make everything revolve around them. The narcissist doesn't enter relationships to share. They enter to conquer, to build their own kingdom in the emotional world of another, where they are the king, the center of everything. When they encounter the empath, they immediately recognize this as the perfect opportunity to execute their plan. The empath possesses an extraordinary pull, an invisible force that can soften anyone's heart. They often open up, sharing their emotions without hesitation, revealing old wounds and unhealed pains. It is this sincerity, this vulnerability, that makes the narcissist see an opportunity. They understand that in the empath's openness, there is a vast space to assert their influence, to pull the empath into a game in which the empath will never realize they are the unwitting lead role in the drama. And so it begins. The narcissist starts with sweet words, gestures of care, and affection overflowing. Everything seems warm, like a dream the empath has always longed for. But the truth is, these actions do not come from genuine love. They are part of a calculated strategy to build trust and dependence. Every word is carefully chosen. Every action has one sole purpose: to make the empath believe they are experiencing true love, that they have found a soulmate who will walk beside them through life. The narcissist skillfully creates an illusion of deep connection, making the empath believe they have found someone who truly understands them, someone who can heal the hidden wounds they've carried for so long. They offer alluring promises, words the empath longs to hear. And while the empath is lost in the sweetness of these promises, the narcissist begins to observe, evaluate, and control every action the empath makes. Throughout this time, the narcissist continues to set up situations to keep the empath in a state where they can't pull away. The sweet words, the gestures of care, everything is a tool to craft a perfect image, one the narcissist wants to create. The empath remains unaware that every action is meticulously planned. Each gesture of concern is a tactic designed to pull them further away from themselves, further away from their own inner world. As the relationship between the super empath and the narcissist progresses, the first signs of change are not always obvious. At first, everything seems perfect: the sweet words, the acts of kindness, the promises full of hope. The narcissist knows how to appear as the ideal partner, the one the super empath has always dreamed of. They know how to build a flawless image, a picture that the super empath only wants to add more colors to. But in reality, it is through these gestures that the narcissist starts to build invisible walls, gradually pushing the super empath into a state of confusion, self-doubt, and a loss of self-identity. The narcissist doesn't just want to capture the empath's emotions. They seek to manipulate and control them, turning these emotions into tools that satisfy their own insatiable ego. One of the strategies the narcissist uses is gaslighting, a subtle technique that makes the empath doubt themselves, questioning if they're good enough, smart enough, or rational enough to understand the truth. Each word the narcissist speaks becomes a piece of an ambiguous puzzle, making the empath start to question their own thoughts and feelings. Bit by bit, the narcissist blurs the lines between reality and illusion. The empath begins to feel trapped in a chaotic emotional mess that they can't explain. What once felt clear and true now seems uncertain. Self-doubt slowly replaces confidence, and instead of feeling loved and cherished, the empath feels like a shadow, forever trying to please someone they can never truly understand. Every action of a narcissist, whether small or large, is calculated, creating an uncanny feeling of uncertainty within the empath. They no longer know if their emotions are real or if they're simply living in a drama orchestrated by the narcissist. Over time, the super empath realizes they have become a part of the narcissist's manipulation plan. They're no longer themselves, but just a role, a character in the story the narcissist has created. The super empath starts to see that they are constantly trying to change, always attempting to reinvent themselves to meet the unreasonable demands the narcissist places on them. They begin to ask themselves, am I doing something wrong? Can I love better? These questions endlessly swirl in their mind, leaving them exhausted, drained, and feeling like a failure. They start to believe they are unworthy of love and that they have become nothing more than a shadow in this relationship. No matter how hard they try, the super empath still fails to realize that it is the narcissist who is manipulating and controlling everything. Instead of seeing how they're being used, they feel inadequate, not good enough, not capable of satisfying the other person. The narcissist uses all these tactics to keep the super empath in a constant state of tension, always anxious and fearful, unsure of what will happen next. The narcissist even starts to completely change the way they treat the super empath. What began as sweet words of love now turns into cold silence, criticism, and indifference. All of these changes serve one sole purpose: to make the super empath feel unworthy, to make them believe they must do more, try harder to win back the narcissist's attention and love. And then, gradually, the super empath begins to realize something important. They cannot continue living under this manipulation. Yes, they still feel pain, still yearn for love, but they begin to understand that staying in this relationship only causes them to lose more and more of themselves. This awakening doesn't come immediately, but slowly, as they start noticing the signs of manipulation, as they begin to reject the lies and the sudden changes from the narcissist. The super empath comes to understand that no matter how much they try, they cannot change the narcissist. And when the true awakening finally happens, it is the moment the super empath understands that they don't need to change to please anyone, and they deserve real love, a healthy relationship. This awakening is not a violent shock, nor is it an explosion of anger or a desire for revenge. In fact, it is a quiet realization, yet one so profound and clear that it can never go back. The super empath starts to understand that they can no longer live in this manipulation, that their unconditional giving has become a burden, not only for themselves, but for the relationship as a whole. This awakening does not come from hatred, but from a deeper understanding of themselves than ever before, a realization that they deserve to be loved genuinely, and they have the right to reject manipulation, lies, and control from the narcissist. The moment comes when the super empath realizes they have lost themselves in this relationship. They have spent so much time trying to understand, fix, and love someone who never had any intention of truly loving them. The narcissist never saw the super empath as a companion, as a real partner, but only as a source of endless energy, a tool to fuel their infinite ego. Every action, every word was part of a plan to control and manipulate that the narcissist had crafted. And as the super empath begins to see they've been caught in that whirlwind, they feel like they've lost themselves, become a puppet in someone else's hands, unable to free themselves. The super empath doesn't feel anger toward the narcissist's manipulation. They don't regret loving, don't regret giving everything they had. Instead, they feel a deep sense of peace and liberation when they realize they no longer have to depend on the lies. It is the moment they begin to recognize their true strength, when they understand that loving does not mean accepting hurt, that love should not be an unconditional sacrifice for someone who doesn't deserve it. This awakening not only helps them see the manipulation the narcissist has created, but also allows them to clearly see their own true value, a value that doesn't rely on anyone else's approval or control. This awakening is a gradual process. It is when the super empath starts to reflect on what they've been through, not through the lens of unconditional forgiveness, but through the clarity of reason and deep understanding. They begin to realize that all the good they have given was not weakness, but strength, and that strength will no longer be exploited. They look back at the moments when the narcissist lied, manipulated, and they see that everything they did was to maintain a relationship that never had any real value. What matters now is not forgiving the narcissist, but forgiving themselves for allowing themselves to be deceived, for spending so much time on someone who didn't deserve it. This moment of awakening is not one of anger or hatred. It's not a powerful shock, but rather a profound realization that the super empath has lost themselves in this relationship. And so, they decide to withdraw, not for revenge, nor to hurt the narcissist, but because they have come to understand that they need to find themselves again, to regain the freedom and peace they had lost. This is self-respect, the affirmation that they deserve love, they deserve respect, and nothing is worth losing themselves over. When the super empath awakens, there is no rebellion, no harsh criticism. There is only a quiet yet powerful retreat. They don't need to say anything because that silence speaks volumes. They don't need to fight. They don't need to explain. All they need to do is stand up and walk away. It is this silence that makes the narcissist feel something they cannot endure. They no longer have control. And that is the moment the narcissist is truly exposed, not to the world, but to themselves. When a super empath withdraws, they are not just leaving. They are cutting the toxic bond once and for all to reclaim the freedom and truth they deserve. When the super empath decides to walk away from the relationship with the narcissist, it is not an act of hatred or anger. This is not about revenge, nor a noisy battle filled with sharp accusations. It is a quiet, powerful action, a retreat filled with wisdom and deep understanding. The super empath does not walk away because love has failed or because of the hurt they've endured. They walk away because they've come to understand something far more important than anything else. They deserve to be loved wholly, not through manipulation, not through control, but through sincerity. That silence is the most powerful weapon the super empath can wield. They don't need to scream, they don't need to fight or prove anything. The super empath knows that this silence will make the narcissist feel their absence more profoundly than anything else. They can no longer exploit the person they once manipulated. Each step, each decision to withdraw, is not giving up but choosing what is best for themselves. The super empath has reminded themselves that their worth does not depend on words, actions, or approval from someone who never saw them as a true partner. People like the narcissist live in a world where they must always control, always maintain power and manipulation over others. When the super empath begins to withdraw, the narcissist cannot understand. They cannot comprehend why someone they believe they could control turns away so calmly and powerfully. The super empath doesn't offer an explanation, doesn't try to soften the hurt or pain the narcissist might feel. Instead, they simply act. They leave without looking back. And it is this act that forces the narcissist to face the truth they've always avoided. They can't manipulate everyone forever. They can't control everything. And most importantly, they can't control the super empath. The super empath doesn't walk away because they no longer love, but because they love themselves enough to understand that true love is not endless sacrifice, not the act of losing oneself to please another. The narcissist has built a perfect facade, an image they believe can mask their inner weakness, insecurity, and fears. But the super empath sees through it. They see that the narcissist is not a god, not someone untouchable. They clearly understand that the narcissist is simply a fragile individual, incapable of standing strong without leaning on others. The super empath no longer feels afraid or incapable of confronting the narcissist. They realize that, in truth, they're the stronger one because they have the ability to love without losing themselves. And it is at this moment that the narcissist begins to feel the inevitable loss. When a super empath walks away, they don't need to explain or justify their decision. Their silence is the most powerful answer, a testament to something the narcissist cannot deny. They no longer have the power to manipulate the super empath. There are no more words, no more responses, no more conversations that the narcissist used to maintain control. And in that silence, the narcissist is forced to confront the truth of themselves, the emptiness and fear they have long tried to hide. The super empath doesn't need to expose the narcissist to the world because their awakening is the very thing the narcissist fears most. It is a painful confrontation, but one that is necessary for the narcissist to realize that no one can live forever in deceit, in manipulation, pretending to live a life that is never truly their own. And when the super empath decides to walk away, they do not just escape the manipulation. They reclaim themselves, finding the strength and self-respect that have been lost in this relationship. This is the moment when a narcissist must look at themselves and ask, am I truly as strong as I think I am? When the super empath awakens and walks away from the relationship with the narcissist, it is not an act of revenge or a bloody battle. The super empath doesn't need to fight, doesn't need to criticize or condemn. They simply need to exist in their own truth. And this presence, simple yet powerful, makes the narcissist feel as though they have lost all control. It is a profound truth that the narcissist cannot escape. They can no longer manipulate or take over the mind of the super empath. The super empath's silence is not a weak withdrawal, but a retreat filled with strength, leaving the narcissist unable to continue imposing and controlling someone they once saw as a tool for their own purposes. When the narcissist looks at the super empath, they don't just see someone they can no longer manipulate. They see themselves in the mirror, the unresolved wounds, the deficiencies they've tried to hide their entire life. The super empath doesn't need to condemn or criticize. They simply exist, and that presence forces the narcissist to confront themselves. Because when the super empath withdraws, they don't just leave, they leave a void that the narcissist cannot fill. It is this emptiness that compels the narcissist to face the wounds they have inflicted on themselves throughout their life. These are wounds of self-esteem, emotional deprivation, and an ego that can never be satisfied. And no matter how much the narcissist tries to hide them, these wounds begin to surface once the super empath is no longer there to maintain a false image. The super empath doesn't need to do much to make the narcissist feel pain. Their withdrawal is an act that reveals the narcissist's darker sides they've done everything in their power to conceal. When the super empath leaves, they aren't just walking away from a relationship. They are truly shedding an emotional burden that the narcissist had bound them to. And this, though not a spoken word or a direct action, holds the power to shatter the illusions the narcissist has built. The narcissist cannot bear this truth because deep down, they know they can't continue living in deception, manipulating others to hide the emptiness inside. When the narcissist faces themselves, they see the weakness they've always denied. They realize that instead of being the strong, independent figure they always claimed to be, they're just a person running from the truth about themselves, the fears and insecurities they never wanted to admit. The super empath's withdrawal is the unveiling of the narcissist's true portrait, not through words of criticism, but through their own silence and strength. The super empath doesn't need to say that the narcissist is lacking or weak. The silence is enough for the narcissist to realize that everything they've built is nothing more than a sandcastle, ready to collapse when no one accepts their lies. And this is what the super empath realizes after everything. They don't need to do anything to defeat the narcissist because their awakening and self-awareness is their greatest victory. The super empath doesn't need to expose the narcissist because when they withdraw and stop reacting, that is the moment the narcissist is forced to face themselves, to confront the emptiness they have been trying so hard to hide. And in that moment, the narcissist loses not only the person they manipulated, but also the false image they have built for themselves. When the super empath begins the journey of healing and reclaiming themselves, it is not a loud or noisy process, but a quiet transformation that runs deep. They no longer seek validation from the narcissist or anyone else. Instead, they begin to realize that their own self is the only source of strength they need. The super empath no longer seeks approval or understanding from the person who once manipulated them. They don't need to explain, don't need to prove anything. The presence of the super empath now is no longer for the purpose of pleasing the narcissist or anyone else. It is to please themselves, to be self-aware, and love themselves completely. In this process, the super empath begins to rebuild what the narcissist had stripped away: self-belief, self-respect, and inner strength. They come to understand that healing is not a return to the past, but a rebirth, a rediscovery of themselves without bowing down to the unreasonable demands and control of the narcissist. The super empath no longer views the past with regret or pain, but looks to the future with determination, believing they deserve a life of freedom, no longer tangled in the games of the narcissist. And in this recovery, the super empath becomes stronger than ever. Their absence is a powerful message that the narcissist cannot deny. When the super empath no longer reacts, no longer participates in the painful struggle, the narcissist will realize they no longer have control over the person they once manipulated. The super empath doesn't need to confront or create a fierce conflict. All they need to do is simply exist in the tranquility of the peace they have reclaimed. This absence is the most potent form of revenge the super empath can offer, because it is the moment when the narcissist must confront themselves, the emptiness they have been running from. The narcissist cannot comprehend the calm and stillness the super empath brings. They cannot understand that while they are still chasing power games, the super empath has found a space of inner freedom where they no longer have to live by the rules and lies the narcissist has created. The narcissist has always relied on reactions, insecurity, and the need for others to maintain their sense of power. When a super empath no longer engages in those games, when they stop reacting and no longer worry about judgment from the narcissist, that is when the narcissist begins to feel the emptiness they have always feared. The journey of healing for the super empath is not just a return, but a complete rebirth. They are no longer the person the narcissist once knew, no longer the person the narcissist could manipulate. The super empath has grown, realizing the power of freedom and independence. They understand now that true strength is not about dominating or controlling others, but about harmony with oneself, the ability to love oneself without seeking validation from the outside. And this is something the narcissist will never understand. When the super empath reclaims their true self, they're not simply recovering. They're truly becoming a new person. They're no longer entangled in the emotional games the narcissist created. The super empath is now someone with the power to choose, with the ability to love, but without needing anyone's approval, especially not the narcissists. They are stronger and wiser, no longer swayed by unreasonable demands or manipulation. This blossoming is a powerful transformation, where they not only overcome the pain, but also uncover their inherent strength. And in the world of the super empath, there is no longer any place for the narcissist. For when someone discovers their own value and strength, they will never allow themselves to be manipulated again. If you're feeling lost or stuck in a toxic relationship, remember that true power lies within you. Motivation to reclaim your strength starts with realizing your worth and taking control of your own life. Inspired by Denzel Washington's wisdom, this journey shows that you don't need to fight back with anger or resentment. Instead, you can find freedom through self-awareness and emotional clarity. Don't let a relationship define you. You have the ability to rise above manipulation and take charge of your happiness. Keep moving forward because your true strength is just waiting to be unlocked.